I'm just going to start the recording. Okay. So hopefully some more people will come on, but if not, we're here and I'm super excited about this presentation. So my name is Jessica McKinley. I am the District 13 PTA President and Chair of the Social Emotional Learning Program for the South Carolina PTA. We have NAMI here and I'm really, really excited to have you guys on. I've been really looking forward to this presentation. I hope you all enjoy it, and I'm going to turn this over to Denise.
So thank you guys for joining our presentation today. My name is Denise Chi, and I'm the program coordinator for NAMI South Carolina. I have with me Ms. Leola, who is going to be your lead presenter for today, and our superstar, Rebecca, who is also going to be sharing her journey with you guys towards the end of the presentation. I'm going to be working behind the scenes, so whatever questions or comments you have, put in the chat box, and I'm going to communicate that with Miss Leola. When she asks questions, raise of hands, just put those stuff in the chat box, and I'll be working behind the scenes with you guys. So without further ado, thank you guys for showing up, and I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Miss Leola.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, and I'm happy to see you this evening, that you're joining us for Ending the Silence. Again, my name is Leola Reeves, and we're from NAMI, which stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness, if you're not aware of us. This is the largest grassroots organization in the country dedicated to improving the lives of those who are affected by mental health conditions. Now, I used to be a school counselor, and after retirement, I joined the staff of NAMI, and I thoroughly enjoy it. But I'm not here today as a professional, not as a psychiatrist or a social worker or anything of that nature. But we are experts in our own lived experiences with mental health conditions or that of family members who have mental health conditions. I have an adult daughter that was diagnosed with ADHD at an early age. She has a son with bipolar disorder and one with ADHD. Now, I understand that parenting can be very difficult. It could be a bit of a challenge. And especially now with COVID, it has made it even more challenging. But we're here today to give you some tools that you can use during this time to let you know more about mental health conditions. We want to, our purpose is definitely to dispel the myths surrounding mental health conditions and stop the stigma. We'll be talking about stigma a whole lot more as we go along. But during this presentation, you're going to learn about the warning signs of mental health conditions and suicide and how to respond to both. This is normally a presentation that we do for students. The slide deck and videos that you see this evening are going to be the presentation that we do for our students. So you will be seeing what they're seeing when we do these presentations at schools. And we're going to try to help with some resources that will be available to you as well. So we're going to be using the chat box. We'll entertain questions at the very end, but we will be asking some questions as we go along because we want you to interact with us. But you will be able to get your questions in at the end. So without further ado, we're going to start the presentation.
My ADD makes it impossible to focus. Don't they get it?
I get depressed about everything. No one feels like I do.
My brother's autistic. No one knows what that's like.
I've been bipolar my whole life. It's so hard on my friends and family.
I have anorexia. I can't tell anyone.
I get so anxious. I can't stand it. No one ever seems to care.
My OCD annoys everybody. I don't have any friends.
I'm suicidal. Would anyone care if I were gone?
I know what you mean.
Sometimes I feel the same way.
Yeah, that's totally me.
Thanks for having my back.
Now, does any of that sound familiar? So my first question right out the gate is, do you know anyone with a mental health condition? Do you know someone or have a family member or someone in your life, someone that you care about that has a mental health condition? Put your response in the chat box, please.
You have a few yeses in the chat box, Leola.
Well, you're not alone. You're not alone. Mental health conditions are much more common than we think. And you notice that there were specific mental health conditions mentioned in the video, but we're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about specifics, but how they affect us and some things that we can do along the way. Let's take a closer look at mental health. Exactly what is mental health? Well, it's something we all have, just like we have physical health. We all have mental health. And just like we strive very hard to keep ourselves physically healthy, we need to do the same thing about our mental health. It's very difficult to separate the two because one tends to affect the other. When I go to the doctor and she asks me how I'm doing, she's concerned about me physically as well as mentally. She understands that if I'm under stress, it's going to eventually affect me physically and vice versa. So we need to be mindful of those things. Being mentally healthy means that we're able to enjoy life and feel good, that we deal with our emotions and stress in a positive way, and that mental health can be maintained with good habits. And with COVID-19 going on ever since that started, it's been a bit challenging as far as maintaining our health, both physically and mentally. So we can think of some things. Let me know, at least in the chat box, what are some of the things that you've been doing for yourself in these challenging times to keep yourself physically and mentally healthy? Can you put that in the chat box for me, please?
There's nothing in the chat box yet, Leola, but for me, I do a lot of yoga and I do a lot of reading and journaling.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that helps me a lot.
And I enjoy journaling myself. That has helped me to focus. Especially, I've done a gratitude journal because sometimes we're now digging deep to kind of find out things that we're actually grateful for. So there are many things we can do, exercise and so many other things that we can do to
Someone says crafting.
Oh, very good. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Because we're having to stay in a whole lot more than what we would maybe like to do. So there are things, some people have taken on projects. So there are just so many things that we can be doing right about now. But mental health brings a lot to mind, and sometimes mental health conditions can develop despite of the fact that we have good, healthy habits. So we can look at now, we want to look at mental health conditions, what they are and what they aren't. And I want to throw this out. And I often ask the students this one because sometimes it gets confused. Mental health is a mental health condition a medical condition? Yes or no? Is a mental health condition a medical condition? Yes or no? What are your thoughts? If you're thinking yes, then you're correct. A mental health condition, like a mental health condition, is a medical condition like physical conditions. Mental health conditions challenge the way we think, feel, and act. And mental health conditions are common and treatable. Now, what mental health conditions are not is it's not anyone's fault, it's nothing to be ashamed of, and it shouldn't limit your goals in life. Having a mental health condition does not make you a bad person. And sometimes people think that that's what that is, but it does not. It does not have to affect us or keep us from achieving our goals. Sometimes things just become a bit more challenging. You know, if we had a broken arm or leg, we wouldn't hesitate to go to the doctor to see about ourselves, but or any other kind of physical condition. But yet we're reluctant to do so if we have a mental health condition.
Mental illness is as common as someone with dirty blonde hair or hazel eyes. In fact, 1 in 4 people in the USA alone experience a mental illness every year. That's more than 57 million people. 2/3 of those people never seek professional help, and many don't know where to go or fear discrimination. But we can change this by simply becoming a friend and lending out a hand to those in need. We have the ability to help each other out. So why not? To start learning how you can become a friend, visit us.reachout.com.
57 million people affected by mental health conditions in this country and climbing, because this statistics was done, statistical study was done before COVID-19. So afterwards, what we have found out is South Carolina, just our state, ranks above the national average when it comes to anxiety and depression. And when we think about what has been going on since COVID, people losing their employment, maybe even at risk for losing their homes, food shortage, just the kinds of things that they may not have had to deal with before, they're dealing with now. 1 in 5 youth in the United States will experience a mental health condition at some point in their lives. 1 in 5. And 50% of that number, ages 8 through 15, with a mental health condition, do not receive any kind of treatment. So my question to you is, why do you think people are reluctant to seek treatment for a mental health condition? Would you put your comment in the chat box, please? Why do you think people are reluctant to seek treatment for a mental health condition? Why? Do you have any responses, Denise?
No, ma'am.
Okay, well, let me help you out a little bit. The reason for it, a big reason, has to do with the word stigma. Stigma is the biggest reason why people don't seek help. And the reason why they don't seek help, it has to do with stigma, is because people, number one, they're afraid of being judged. There are stereotyping labels, unfortunately, that we put on people who have mental health conditions. We call them surgery at all. Bullying is often involved with mental condition, and also stigma and criticize and it could lead to individuals not seeking help for a mental health condition. There are a lot of things said that are not necessarily true. For example, the notion that all people with mental health conditions are violent and dangerous, when in fact the truth is that people with mental health conditions often are likely to be victims of violence, especially victims of bullying. And with social media being the way it is, people have oftentimes used social media to bully. And so it's not just face-to-face type bullying that may have taken place years ago. There are different means of this going on now. So these
Miss
are
Loyola,
things.
we have a comment in the chat box that says people are afraid to talk about it.
Yes, they are. And they've been made to feel afraid. They've been made to feel ashamed that this is something to hide. But if we're going to stay physically healthy, we also, need to stay mentally healthy too, because they affect each other. So that is definitely true what you said, that fear has a lot to do with people not wanting anyone to know that they have a mental health condition. And I want to say this, that we all, of course, have mental health, and we all struggle from time to time. That may vary individually, but we all have our challenges from time to time. And we are in very challenging times right now. So it is very, very common, much more common than we think. We want to take a look at some warning signs of mental health conditions. And this is one of the handouts that you should have gotten before we came on. And these are, I asked the students, they usually get this on a little card that they can put in their wallet. The warning signs: feeling very sad and withdrawn for more than 2 weeks because, things come up. Okay, we can say that things like a death in the family, chronic illnesses, anything like that can come up that would cause us to feel sad and withdrawn. But certainly when this lingers on for a period of time and people are not able to deal with it appropriately, then we run into some warning signs, especially when it turns into anxiety and depression. So severe out of control risk-taking behavior, causing harm to themselves or others, a sudden overwhelming feeling of fear for no reason, racing heart, seeing, hearing, or believing things that aren't real, drastic changes in mood, behavior, and personality, and sleep habit. And there's more. Extreme difficulty concentrating or staying still, or putting yourself and others in danger. Intense worries or fears that get in the way of the daily activities, throwing up, using laxatives and not eating to lose weight, using alcohol or drugs excessively, trying to harm oneself, attempting suicide, or making plans to do so. Now, these are warning signs that, if you were to think about someone in your life, a young person in particular, that may be showing some of these warning signs, then there is reason to be concerned. And we'll look further into what we may need to do when we see those warning signs. So think about to yourself now, if you know someone who is displaying these types of warning signs.
I feel insecure around people.
I want to eat, but I won't.
I'm trying to fill this emptiness inside.
I need to make everything perfect.
I feel so alone.
Because I never reached out, people ignored me. I was just afraid to talk about it.
People teased me and discriminated against me.
It seemed like no one was there for me.
I was trying to get away from my problem.
Every day was a challenge.
But I realized I didn't have to do it alone.
My friends and family were there to support me. Mental illness is extremely common. 1 in 5 American youth live with a diagnosed mental health challenge. Support from friends and loved ones is the best way to overcome stigma and discrimination. If you are struggling with a mental health challenge, do not be afraid to talk about it. Come join the conversation and get support at www.reachuphere.com.
Now, Denise is going to put in the chat box some resources as we get to them that you can reach out to for help with mental health conditions. If you notice any of these warning signs, and I often tell the students when we watch this when we do this presentation, that if you notice any of these warning signs in yourself or in your friends, be sure to tell a trusted adult about what's going on. Oftentimes when students are going through something and they tell their friends, don't tell anybody. There are certain things that should not be kept a secret. And this is signs of mental health conditions is something that should not be kept a secret. So we try to make sure that they understand that this is something they need to share with someone who is a trusted adult. And like I was saying in the video, we can't do it alone, and we need to have the support of family and friends. So what can you do? Like I said, we tell the students, talk to a trusted adult, talk to a friend, send a message to someone who cares about you. Use the resources on the card that there's some information that you were given, and Denise is going to put that information in the chat box again. Now, as parents, if you're thinking about someone in your life that may be struggling with mental health conditions, feel free to contact the school, to let the teachers know what's going on. Oftentimes, teachers see things at school that you don't see at home, and vice versa. So it's very important to keep those lines of communication open between you and the school. And oftentimes, I was a middle school counselor, so oftentimes things get lost in transition when students transfer from elementary to middle school and middle school to high school. Sometimes information may get kind of lost in transition, and there are things that the school may need to know about your child, and then there are things that they need to communicate with you about what's happening at school. So try to leave those lines of communication open, get the information that you need about contacting them, and make sure that they can contact you. Now we're going to switch gears a minute and talk about the warning signs of suicide. This is never a comfortable subject, but it's a necessary subject. And so we want you to understand out the gate that in most cases, suicide just, it occurs in people who have some other kind of underlying mental health condition. Oftentimes it's not due to one isolated incident, a breakup with a boyfriend or girlfriend, or a bad grade on a test or something like that. Usually it's a bit more involved than that. And we want you to understand that when someone is having suicidal ideations, it means that their brain is not the part of the brain that's responsible for reasoning, just doesn't seem to be functioning properly. Suicide has become such a topic of concern that the January 2020 issue of the NEA magazine, and the NEA magazine is the magazine for the teachers organization. The cover story of that magazine for January of this 2020 was the 1 in 6 students consider suicide. 1 in 6. That's how much it has gotten to be a problem. So when you see or hear someone talking, writing, or drawing about death, talking about having no reason to live, being a burden on others, and you hear a lot of that these days with the parents going through a lot of things financially, emotionally, and otherwise, not being here tomorrow, looking for ways to attempt suicide, feeling hopeless, desperate, or trapped, giving away possessions, and that's a big one. When you see someone giving away things that you know that's important to them, teenagers are real territorial when it comes to their belongings. And when they start giving away passwords to social media accounts and things like that, there's reason for concern. And just behaving recklessly. These are warning signs that something is going on. And I often say, if it doesn't feel right, sound right, look right, we need to pay attention because something may definitely be going on. So I'm asking at this time, do you know someone who has talked about, who has talked about, attempted, or died by suicide? Do you know anyone who has talked about, attempted, or died by suicide? Yes or no?
We have 2 yeses in the chat box.
Okay. When it doesn't look right, sound right, feel right, trust your instincts. Trust your instincts because you know that person better than others do, maybe. And so it is time to take action if that's what's going on. Ask them, take it seriously. Ask the question, and it's not, oftentimes people think that because if you ask somebody if they're thinking about suicide, then that's going to make them do something. Not necessarily so. In fact, it gives them time to think about what they're thinking about doing. So ask the question, if you're thinking about suicide, don't leave them alone. Tell someone else who can help. Call 911, call the National Suicide Lifeline, and Denise is going to put those numbers there. There are quite a few numbers that we have that we can share with you, but don't keep warning signs and signals of suicide a secret. That's the main thing. Don't keep it a secret. It's not something that's going to go away. If someone's severely depressed, they need help.
This was the first day we met. I knew right away that you were going to be a big part of my life.
What happened to the video? Oh. Sorry about that.
This was the first day we met. I knew right away that you were going to be a big part of my life. We had so many good times. But this was the day you started acting different. You isolated yourself. You were sad all the time. I thought you were ignoring me, but when I saw your wrists, I knew it was much more than that. I knew I had to talk to an adult, so you could get the help that you needed. And today is the day we appreciate the life that could have been lost.
Not every friendship has a tomorrow. If someone you know is showing signs of suicide, talk to an adult or call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, because suicide can be prevented?
Many times suicide can be prevented, but not always. I knew someone that took their own life, and we didn't see it coming. The signs were there, but we missed them. And so it can't always be prevented, but at least if we see the warning signs and we now know what they are, we can take action. We don't want you to feel guilty about someone taking their life, because it's something we can't be responsible for someone else's actions, but we can certainly try to intervene if we know that something is going on. We talked about some negative coping skills. You remember we talked about the things that put the person at risk and others at risk. These are negative coping skills. Now let's talk about some things that might make things better, that most likely will make things better for a person. First out the gate is treatment. Now, we're not here to advocate a specific type of treatment. That's something that needs to be decided between the parent, the student, and the healthcare provider. But therapy, any kind of therapies, cognitive behavioral group, art, pet, non-traditional therapy. Some people turn to their faith leaders for counseling, medication. But whatever takes place, whatever kind of treatment, the earlier the better. The earlier the better when treatment is concerned. So these are some things that make symptoms better. Getting enough sleep, and we encourage students to do that. You would be surprised that, and maybe you may not, but we talk to students who tell us that they get 2 and 3 hours of sleep a night. That's just not adequate. Our bodies go into self-repair when we sleep, and we need to get adequate amount of sleep. Exercise is extremely important, eating healthy. We can do things like writing in a journal, and there are some things on the back of this, on one of these cards, that talk about some of the things that we can do to some positive coping strategies. Being active. These strategies are important in improving and maintaining good health. Now, this is something that we show the students. This is we pull this up on the screen, and we ask them, what do these people have in common? And I'm asking you, what do you think these people have in common other than being rich and famous? What do you think some of these people have in common, or all of these people up here have in common? What could they possibly have in common? What do you think? Put your comment in the chat box. What do you think? Any answers, Denise?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Well, they
Oh,
all.
I'm sorry. One said they all have mental health issues. Ooh, yay.
That's correct. You're absolutely right. And I'm just going to run through it right quick for time's sake. If you are interested, on the top row, and these people have so graciously agreed to allow us to share this information with you all. They have allowed NAMI to do so. Demi Lovato in the top left deals with bipolar disorder. Brandon Marshall, who's an NFL football player, deals with borderline personality disorder. Adele deals with anxiety disorder. Ruby Rose, who is famous for being on the TV show Orange is the New Black, she deals with depression. So does Margaret Cho, who's on the second row, and Serena Williams. Serena, you know, a lot of her depression and anxiety and depression plays out on the tennis court. And people kind of remember when she smashed the tennis racket, she got upset one time about something. But, you know, it's unfortunate that a lot of these people's lives play out in the public, their successes and things that they're struggling with as well. Halle Berry also deals with depression. Lady Gaga does, and Alicia Keys. Adam Levine, Channing Tatum, and Will Smith deal with ADHD. Maybe that's why Will Smith likes those action movies. He can move around a lot. Leonardo DiCaprio deals with obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD. Kerry Washington deals with an eating disorder. Former President John F. Kennedy dealt with anxiety. And so these are people who are in the limelight. However, they're ordinary people just like us. They have their struggles just like we do. But they are all advocates of treatment. And they all believe that we need treatment in order to get better. So how can you help? And I ask the kids, how can you help a friend? What are some things that you can do to help someone who may be struggling? Well, first of all, you can recognize the warning signs and share with your concerns with them. Ask them, ask them about their struggle. Well, first of all, let them know you care about them. If you approach anyone, because your language really does matter, ask them, first of all, let them know you care about them, and then ask them about what you've been observing, the type of behavior that you've been seeing with them. Approach them privately, but let them know that you're concerned. Encourage them to talk to, I tell the kids, tell your friends to talk to a trusted adult. And I usually have them fill out something at school, like, or write down the trusted people that they have in their lives at school, at home, and in the community. Make sure that they have the information, contact information for these people, because these are the people they want to contact in the event that they find themselves in a stressful situation. Share resources, include them in your social plans. And I know we have to go about socializing differently now, but even just calling, texting, checking on someone. Help people to stay positive. Encourage them to follow their treatment plans. Check on them regularly and listen and offer support. That's extremely important.
You are my friend. You are not a mental illness, because you cannot be defined by fact, just as I cannot be defined by my race, gender, or sexuality. You can be defined by your strength, both literally and figuratively, and by your amazing sense of humor. You always know how to put a smile on my face. You can also be defined by your passion for music. There are endless definitions to who you are. Unfortunately, there are some people who would rather define us by what makes us different than them. However, you are more similar to me than many of those people are. I stand up for you because you deserve a lot better than you often endure. You are not your mental illness because that could have happened to anyone. You are uniquely you because of your character.
When we describe a person who has a mental health condition, just like we describe a person who has a physical condition, if you describe a person who has a physical, say the person has cancer, we don't say he is cancer. We say he has cancer. Same thing we need to do with people with mental health condition. Instead of saying a person is schizophrenic, then we say that person has schizophrenia. That person has bipolar disorder, because the mental health condition is not who they are, is what they have. So we need to keep that in mind when we're talking about mental health conditions. So what can we do to reduce that stigma? We can talk about mental health with family and friends, share links and resources on social media, Don't bully this. And I ask the kids, decide not to bully, stereotype, or label others just because they're different. Call other people out if they use stigmatizing language. Post on, and this is a wonderful site, oktotalk.org. Wear the lime green ribbon, and that's our color that we use for mental health, the lime green ribbon. And we have wristbands, lime green wristbands that we give the students as well.
So Miss Loyola, somebody in the chat box says just letting them know you're here for them can be a huge difference.
It can, because that's what they need more than anything else is support from family and friends, and to know that we're here for you. When someone hears and feels that you care, it makes a world of difference. They tend to open up. So in a way of reviewing, remember, mental health conditions are medical conditions. It is not anyone's fault. We want to know the warning signs. You are not alone. Recovery is possible, and you have the power to do what? End the silence. Now, the brief video that I'm going to show next, it is silent at first. There's a reason for it. Just read the captions, and you'll see what we're talking about here.
Studies show that 1 in 5 teens are living with a mental health challenge.
However, mental health symptoms are treatable.
Don't be afraid to take a stand against the stigma.
Speak up or show support.
If we all speak loud enough, we can end this silence for good. Join the conversation and find support at www.reachouthere.com.
Thank you so much. Denise is going to put some more information in the chat box about contact information, and they were given to you in the way of the handout. There's also some other information on bullying and other topics of interest on our NAMI South Carolina website. And also pay attention to the card that says Stop Breathe. This breathing exercises are real good for calming us down. And these are things that we can find even more information about on YouTube and other sites to help us during these stressful times. Thank you so much for listening. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Rebecca Bagley, who is our young adult presenter. She's going to share her journey of mental health with you at this time. Okay, Rebecca.
Thank you. My name is Rebecca Bagley, and I'm going to share a little bit about my journey with my mental health condition with y'all this evening. So a little bit about me is I am 21 years old. I'm a full-time peer sports specialist. I like things such as selling my art at conventions and festivals when we aren't in a pandemic. I like volunteering with things that are close to my heart, NAMI being one of them. I spend most of my free time with my family and friends, typically watching Netflix, playing video games, those sort of things. So I'm pretty much your average 21-year-old. I just happen to have a mental health condition. Thinking back, my younger years, especially high school, was admittedly really rough for me. I recall about a 2-week period where I didn't last more than 2 hours into the school day, and so my teachers were calling my mom, telling her that she had to come pick me up, and that was due to my relentless crying, hyperventilating, and panic attacks. But before my mental health condition really manifested, I was incredibly social and incredibly outgoing. But within about a year, I had turned into a recluse. And even though a year seems like a short period of time for some people, I thought the changes seemed slow. I started simply coming up with reasons not to go out with friends. I would talk less in groups. I didn't want to go anywhere public. I started to make excuses to avoid the things that I used to really enjoy doing. I would stay in my room to eat. And family and friends thought I was just being a moody teenager. But that wasn't the case. I remember this one specific instance where I went on a school field trip and we were touring a college. And on the way to get back on the bus, to go back to the school, to go home, I was hit with such anxiety and such a bad panic attack that I just couldn't get on the bus. And I had stalled my whole class from leaving for about 15 minutes. And that was a really difficult experience for me. The classmates teased me horribly and thought I was just being dramatic. Now, these symptoms I mentioned did escalate to a severe place. Some of my more severe symptoms included self-harm, disordered eating, flashbacks, intrusive thoughts, which for me, intrusive thoughts are obsessive, repeating thoughts about stuff that makes me really uncomfortable. I also dealt with suicidal thoughts. But oddly enough, even at the severity of my mental health condition, academically, it was the best I'd ever been. Right before being committed into a mental hospital my junior year of high school, it was the first time I'd ever had all straight A's. And as your BC average student, that was really impressive for me. But at the same time, my mental state was deteriorating. And I go to say that because because someone thinks you or you think someone else is doing well because of how they appear on the outside, whether they're doing well in their jobs or academically, that does not mean that they shouldn't reach out or you shouldn't reach out and ask for help. Because when that little voice in your head says, hey, maybe something doesn't seem right here, then it's definitely worth reaching out and asking for that help. Now, I want to talk for a minute on stigma because stigma has affected me in my recovery journey. But most of the stigma that I have faced has come within myself. And that's because I just remember this sinking feeling when I was first diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder. I took my diagnosis as a sentence to a life of failure. But that's because of that stigma. It's because no one had talked to me about succeeding while having a mental health condition. And accepting that diagnosis for me was a grieving process. I felt like I was saying goodbye to the old me. But that doesn't mean that parting of ways was necessarily a bad thing. I have become so strong due to the things that I have faced. I remember one time that someone told me when I was really young, actually, that the best I would ever be is stable. They told me that if I ever finished high school, I would not go on to college, I would not have a job, would not succeed in a job. And it really upset me. And they were wrong because not only did I survive my trauma, survive my crisis, not only am I in recovery, but I am thriving, and I know that anybody else can too. And that really all starts with gathering the incredible amount of courage that it takes to reach out and ask for help. Some of the biggest aids in my recovery is a treatment plan that works for me. And for me, that includes therapy, medication, meditation, support from others, and having an artistic outlet. But what works for me may not work for you. So if and when you do reach out, if that first thing, whether it be counseling, medication, whatever that first thing is, if it doesn't work or if it doesn't work immediately, please know that these things take time, but they are so worth it. If I had given into my mental health condition, I would have missed out on so much beauty in life. I would not only go to do all the things I was told I couldn't do, but I would start accomplishing some big dreams of mine. Life after my diagnosis was one that at the time I literally could not imagine for myself. I went from a recluse with agoraphobia, never leaving my house, to a college graduate with certificates, having friendships, and getting my dream job. And I have so many more goals right now. And everyone defines success differently, but I define success by doing the things either other people told me or doing the things that I told myself that I couldn't do, and then being a mythbuster and doing those things. Now, as a Christian and as someone from kindergarten has always asked the question why to anything and everything that has ever been taught to me, I would often pray and ask God why. I would say, why me? Why must I go through this? Why must simple things be so difficult for me? And it wasn't until the start of my recovery journey that I felt like God began to answer these questions. And I personally, for myself, feel like that I needed that experience, I needed that hardship to be able to inspire others and accomplish my dreams. And that's what I'm doing. Now, if you listen to one thing I say, please listen to this last note, and that is recovery is not linear. I am still a person with a mental health condition. But the thoughts and the fears and the obsessions, they don't drown me anymore. Now they're just like passing waves. So that's a little bit about my story and me, and I really appreciate y'all listening.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rebecca. You've been so inspiring to us. You know, I just can't say enough about how much you've touched us, and I think I'm speaking for myself and maybe some others as well. At this time, we'd like to entertain any questions that anyone may have. If you want to unmute and ask the question, fine. If you want to put the question in the chat box, that's fine as well. But, you know, we want to know, of course, we covered things as best we can within this 1 hour period. But if there are additional questions that you may have of us, of either of us, just ask at this time if you want to.
Someone says, wow, thank you, Rebecca, for sharing your story.
She's a very courageous young lady. Not everyone's willing to share, but she's been with us for a while, and she's shared, and she's inspired me every time she's done it. And we thank you so much. We, if you think of some more questions that you may want to put in the chat box, you can do that. We have our evaluation information on the screen. You can scan with your phone, or you can go to the link and just do a brief survey to let us know how we're doing. Naturally, we want to give you the best information possible. Let's see, is there a different way that, okay. Can you relay that question, Denise, please? Someone has a question in the chat box. I saw part of it.
Is there a different way that educators should help students?
Well, we do a presentation for school staff. We have 3 different NAMI presentations, Ending the Silence presentations. We have the Ending the Silence for students, families, and one for school staff. And in that one, the one for school staff, we encourage them to be observers. They're good observers anyway, but we give them things that they need to be looking for. And in not only them observing, but also when to bring in the parent and school counselor and others in on what they're observing. Because like I said, oftentimes teachers see things going on at school that parents don't see at home. For example, the parent may see this kid that's not wanting to get up in the morning and running late all the time and just maybe being argumentative about going to school. On the other end, the teacher might see someone sleeping in class and not doing their schoolwork. If the two aren't communicating with each other in that way, they wouldn't necessarily, the parent knows what's going on at home, but the parent does not know what's going on at school, and vice versa. So communication between the two is extremely important, and the teachers being the expert observers that they already are, really being in tune to what's going on with the students. And I know sometimes that can be more challenging than not. Teachers are dealing with different methods of teaching now than they're used to. But there are things that they can tell when things are not the way they used to be with this kid, or when something's just not right. So we do have a presentation that addresses that.
I put the link for the chat box again in the link for the evaluation, sorry, in the chat box. You could just copy that, put it in your, and you could fill out the evaluation for us. If you guys want me to put the code back up, I could do that.
And there's something else that I did not mention, but it may be included in the handout that you were given. There on the list of numbers, phone numbers that were given out, there is an app that I'm really impressed with. It's called Not Okay, and it was developed by a high school brother and sister from Atlanta. They developed this app, and what it is students can go in and put in about a list of at least up to 6 people, 6 adults that they want contacted in the event that they're in a crisis situation. And once they put that in and they alert this app that they're in crisis, these people are automatically notified. And so I think that that's something really great, that we've decided to add that to our list of emergency contacts as well. So there are so many resources out there now. There are needs for even more. But the more we observe, the more we see, and the more we're able to intervene when we see things that don't appear to be right with a child.
And we also have a handout. We also have a booklet, Parents and Teachers as Allies. If you guys would like for us to send you a few, just put your email or reach out to me. I put my email address in there before, but I'm going to go ahead and put it again, and then we could send you out the booklet, Parents and Teachers as Allies. And it has all the different diagnoses, and it has the signs and symptoms and stuff in there.
It's a great resource. It really is. And we have quite a few of them. So just let us know, and we'll be glad to get that information to you.
Just email me like your mailing address for us to mail it out to you, and you know who we should go to and how many books would you more or less would you want.
Okay. Our host, is she back on? If she can close us out, if there aren't any more questions. There you are.
I'm here. Just trying to write down her email address. I really like this booklet. I think that we could really help a lot of people. And I know it wasn't a lot that came on, but I just want to let you guys know that you have helped me. So that's one person. So I really appreciate you, coming on, and Rebecca, I really appreciate you telling your story. It's very brave of you, and I know that not a lot of people are as open as they are with their mental health, and it's a pretty it's a touchy thing, and it's emotional. It's an emotional subject. So I really appreciate that. I think that's really great, and I'm so happy to hear that you're doing well, and you've definitely given me hope, like with my child, and other children that I may be around, and adults, anybody. So well, I'll definitely have to contact Judy about getting this other presentation in. I think that would be great, and we could have a whole different community and people that join in. And we'll talk to a bunch of people and see what we can do about that. But I think that as educators, they should know at least the basics of how they can help their child. Sometimes that teachers are with children more than their own parents.
Yeah,
unfortunately, and it's no one's fault. It's just that's just how it is.
it is what it is. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, okay. Well, I appreciate you being here. It looks like most people have left, but I will definitely email you about that booklet. And thanks again. But we'll talk soon. We'll be in touch.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.